Good morning, all. Give a shout out if you're here yet. I'm Jennifer Eubank, here with the Sun and Moon YouTube yoga channel. And we'll get started in just a moment. Let me know if you're here. If you can, you don't need to if you don't want to. I'm going to wait about 1 minute. So if you're here and if you will practice this morning, you may want to grab a blanket and a couple of blocks. Not necessary, but really nice to have those on hand in general. Good morning, Jane. Good morning. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for being here. 2 blocks and a blanket. We'll get started in just a moment. I live in Westover. I hear the chimes. Good morning, Joan. Hi, Joan. My sister, Joni. Yay, Joan. Oh, that puts a huge smile on my face. Oh, my goodness. Vegas, baby, Vegas. Okay. So, I am going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start close up, but in a few moments I'm going to get back to my space. And we will start in a seated position. So if you want to go ahead and get in your yoga space, go for it. And find a nice comfy seat. Build it up with some props if you so desire. You know, we've talked about that in the last few sessions. As you sit on a blanket and raise the hips higher than the knees, it makes sitting far more tolerable. And it's important that you find a good comfy seat because I have a couple of things to say to explain this next installment. And B, I want to start with some breathing. And so you'll need a nice comfy position to support some good, thoughtful, focused breathing. So again, I'm Jennifer Eubank, here every Friday morning from 10 to 10:30 on the Sun and Moon Yoga YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. And if you noticed, I changed my direction, my focus. Today's title, Bones of Contention, Bones of Contentment. And this week I was teaching a class and I don't remember what pose we were doing, but for some reason I zeroed in on a particular bone and I chuckled and said bones of contention. And it planted this seed and I thought, oh, that's a great direction for my next YouTube class. And well, first of all, I have a lot to say about this. Number one, I love words, I love puns, I love idioms, bones of contention. And I'm like, when I said it, I kind of knew what it meant, but I wanted to look it up and see what its history was. So I looked up the idiom, and there seems to be some disagreement about what it really means and where it came from, but the gist of it is that 2 dogs fight over 1 bone. The bone is the bone of contention, and that seems to be the most accepted meaning of that phrase, that idiom. And there are lots of bones of contention these days, and there are lots of dogs out there. There's a lot of scariness out there. And we can let these bones of contention get really huge and overtake us, or we can minimize these bones of contention. And my feeling is that it starts right here, in my house, in my living room, in my body. I was in a horrible car accident about 10 years ago, and I broke 18 bones in my body, and it was a terrible, terrible time for me, very scary. And I got really mean and angry during that whole recovery period. I mean, who doesn't get mean when they're in pain? And in yoga, we really understand and learn to understand and focus on the connection between the body and our behavior and our emotions. And five of those bones that I broke were in my ribs. I broke 5 ribs. So I wanted to focus today on the rib cage because it's been a real bone of contention for me. It's been a real seat of pain, discomfort, and sometimes I find myself getting wrapped up in my physical pain and taking it out on those around me. And I don't want to be that way. I hate seeing what's going on out there, and um, I've hesitated to bring up politics in my yoga teachings, but it's something that we really need to face head on. It's out there. There's a lot of hate, a lot of contention out there, and sometimes I feel like there's not much I can do about the big world, the big contention, but I can do something about the little guy, the me. I can do my own part in establishing peace. And if we can all contribute that way, maybe there will be less bones of contention out there and more bones of contentment. So I am starting today on the ribs. And with that being said, I warned you that I had something to say this morning. That was a long intro. So now we'll actually start our practice. And we will focus on our ribs and get in touch with our ribs. So I'm going to move back so you can see me a little bit better. And here's a bone of contention right here. Little guy, you're right in my seat. Bless his little heart. Okay. Oh, what a sweetheart. He knows who's boss. Okay, so find a good, comfy, seated position. And sit nice and tall. And so you can be whatever seated position you want. I'm cross-legged. If you want to have legs extended, you can do that. You can be sitting in a chair, whatever you need to find comfort. So really, really take the time to find stability and comfort. And take just a few moments to settle into your seat and put effort to your posture. Sit up nice and tall and feel expansion in your chest, your shoulders, your ribs, the back, the lower and the upper back. And breathe into that height and width and expansion. Maybe close the eyes as you do this, because there's no reason to be looking at the screen now. Zero in on your breath. Close the mouth, breathe in and out through the nose. Notice the inhale, notice the exhale. And as you focus on the breathing, is it starting to expand? Are your inhales getting bigger and longer? Likewise with the exhales. If you ever feel that it's going too big, simply back off. Regulate your breath. And as you're ready, maybe keep your hands on your knees, or maybe put the hands on the belly, and continue to focus on your breath, focusing on the inhale and the exhale. Feel the belly rise with the inhale, feel the belly lower with the exhale. So just focus on that action for a few moments, a few breaths. Belly rises with the inhale, belly lowers with the exhale. And as you're ready, take the attention higher up. As you inhale, feel the belly rise, feel the ribs expand. And as you exhale, feel the ribs deflate back down, belly goes back down. Inhale, belly rises, ribs expand. Exhale, ribs lower, de-expand, belly lowers. And keep going with this breath. And if you want, you can take your hands off the belly and put them back on your knees if that's more comfortable for you. You can do either or. And just continue focusing on your breathing. And feel the belly rise, the rib cage expand in all directions. And as you exhale, everything goes back in reverse. Rib cage expands, and as the rib cage expands, notice your chest is expanding, your collarbone's expanding, your shoulders are widening. And this is all happening not just in the front of the body, but the sides and the back of the body. Are you starting to feel more spacious in your rib cage? And we'll go a few more breaths like this. Rib cage is expanding with every breath. I studied with the teacher here at Sun and Moon. Her name is Madeline, and she once described the rib cage as not a rib cage, but a rib basket. So these last few breaths, think of your ribs as not a cage that's confining, but as a basket, that's something that's evolving, growing, expanding, and sharing with others. Flowers, we love to give flowers. Flowers bring smiles and happiness. So feel your rib basket expand these last few breaths. And notice how it's really raised up off of your hips, giving your hips more room to settle in. So perhaps as you open up your rib cage, your hips have opened up and your seat has become more comfortable. So let's back off that breathing and take a few regular breaths. And as you come back to regular breaths, notice what's going on in your body before you make any changes. And then let's go ahead and let's put a little bit of movement to things. So let's come into a table position. So I was sitting on a blanket. Now I've got it here for my knees, just in case. If you have knee issues, table might be easier if you put a blanket under them. Come into your table, take your time, snuggle in, and then when you're ready, pick up one of those feet and put it out to the side. So it's called a cat lunge. Usually we put our foot in between our hands, but we're going to go out to the side here and stabilize yourself. Take your time to do that. You can always have blocks with you as part of this. And then make your way up. Take your time coming up. And as you come up, make sure your foot is under your knee and this knee is good and rooted. And you've got a good stability and good balance in your stance. So figure out where you need to have that foot. My toes are pointing perpendicularly to the wall opposite it. And take a few moments to settle into this. It's called a Captain Morgan when you come up like this. And find space. So when you first come up, you might feel a little truncated in your trunk. So find that space in your rib basket that we just found. Maybe do a couple of those three-part breaths that we just, the belly rise, the rib cage expands, the rib basket expands, and the collarbones and shoulders widen. So maybe you need to do a couple of those breaths as you're here to find comfort in space. And then when you're ready, put your hands in front, and then we'll expand that expansion, and we'll put some movement in things. And as we do this, we're careful to keep the weight even on the foot and the knee, and we're careful to be breathing throughout this entire process, and careful to keep the shoulders and elbows relaxed. Inhale as you rise, exhale as you expand out. And we'll do a few more of these. And notice what's going on in your rib baskets. And let's do one more and then another. And this last one, let's land in warrior two arms. So bring the arms out to the sides and stay here for a couple of breaths. And we're kind of in a kneeling warrior two. So if you do a lot of yoga, perhaps you'd like to look over the fingertips that are above the bent, raised knee. Settle in and feel your rib baskets expanding evenly, even though there's a little bit of differences. This one with the bent knee might feel a little shorter than this one. See if you can find evenness in both sides. And then as you're ready, we can bring those arms back down and the head back to center. And then extend that leg out and make sure you have enough room so that your foot is on the mat still. This is called, we're making our way towards a gateway pose. This is not a pose I often do in my daily repertoire, but I'm adding it in more and more because it's very liberating for our rib baskets. So sit nice, or sit nice and tall. Stand tall on your knee and your foot. Find that evenness in your trunk, even though there's something a little different going on below. Feel the rib basket lift away from your hips evenly. And use an inhale to lift the arms up, interlace the fingers, turn the hands so the palms reach towards the ceiling, and take a few breaths, reaching up without stressing your shoulders and keeping the weight even on that foot and that knee. And then as you're ready, lower the arm on the extended leg side and press it into the leg. So really brace yourself. And as you brace yourself, reach up with the other arm and find a little bit of space in this rib cage on this side and start to curve. So find that space here before you start to curve on the outer side of your rib basket. So you're not collapsing into these ribs, you're creating that space and curving them. And you're keeping the shoulders relaxed as you do this. So it's not about bringing this hand way down, it's just about finding a slight curve and opening up your armpit, your rib basket on this side without damaging the other side or creating strife and contention. We want all of our bones to feel content as we do these movements. So we bring that arm back down, and then you can bring your hands to the blocks if you've got blocks, and take a few moments to simply bring that knee back in and kind of shimmy from side to side if you need to. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So first we start in our table, and we stabilize the table before we do anything else. Then we go into our cat lunge. Figure out where that foot makes most sense. It might need rising up for you to make that final determination, so take your time. And then find equal weight between the knee that's on the floor and the foot that's on the floor. Find evenness and symmetry, even though you're not even though you are asymmetrical. Take a few breaths and feel that rib basket lifting up and away from the hips, in the front, the sides, and the back. Take your time with that. And then when you're ready, you can bring the hands in the front, and when you're ready, start the arm movement. So maybe you're still settling in. That's fine. And as you're ready, join us. And find that expansion, expanding. And use your inhale to lift and your exhale to expand out. Nice big breaths. Maybe even let one of those exhales out with your mouth. Sometimes we need that audible sound to remind us of our contentment. Learned that from Miss Vicky the past few weeks as I studied with her. Land in your warrior two and take a few breaths to assimilate. Make sure everything feels good and stable, and then when you know it is, turn and look over your fingertips and take a few breaths here and check in. Stabilize, make sure everything is feeling pretty even. Belly is drawn, rib basket lifting away from your hips. And as you're ready, we can use an exhale to make our way back to the front with the head and the arms down. And then you can find those blocks as you start to extend your other leg out. And once again, that foot is really rooted onto the floor. My toes are pointing in the same direction as my face is. But you might need to angle your foot a little bit. Everybody's a little different. So figure out what makes sense for your foundation. Foot is stable, knee is stable. And rise up from that and spend a few breaths expanding your trunk. Lifting your rib basket up and out as you breathe in and letting it go back in the exact same direction as it goes back. Well, the opposite. Find that space, and then when you're ready, expand that by using an inhale to reach up, interlace the fingers, turn the hands, reach up, and as you reach up, find equal weight between your knee and your foot so that this doesn't become a stressful movement. And when you know that's good and sound, you can bring that arm down and press the hand into the leg and find a little bit of space here as you reach. So find this curve, the space and the curve on the inside of your gateway pose before you find it for the outside of your gateway pose. So that both sides of your rib basket are getting the space they need to change shape. Breathe into it. Nice big inhales, nice big exhales. And next time you inhale, let's reach up, come back to center, and exhale, float that arm down. Keep your rib basket expanded as the arm comes down. So that means your chest is lifted, and that is much easier for that shoulder to bring the arm down. Take a couple of breaths here. Make your way down to your hands on your blocks. And then as you're ready, slowly bring that knee back in. And from here, I bet you're all just barking to do a downward facing dog. Somehow we can fit a dog bone into this, right? I mean, that's the whole origin of that idiom, bones of contention. Two dogs fighting over a bone. Can you find your dog so that the two sides of your body are not in contention, but they're working together in contentment as a team, expanding and lengthening and widening. And take a few of those nice big inhales and exhales and feel your rib cage, your rib basket expanding in all directions. Lifting away from the hips, making more room in your trunk. And whenever you want, you can come down to a table pose and spend whatever time you want in table and turn it into a puppy or a child's pose. Take your time. You find your rhythm. You find your range of movement. You find your versions that are working for you today so that you're not struggling with yourself, that you're working with your whole body to find contentment, not to find, oh my gosh, I can't do this. My legs are so weak. Oh, my belly is too big. Oh, look. Don't look for contention in your practice. Look for contentment. And we'll do about 10 more breaths in our dog poses. So if you're down in a restive pose, you might want to take the time to come up for one last nice downward facing dog. Nice long arms, nice long legs, soft elbows, soft knees, wide hips and wide shoulders. Breathing into that rib basket, feeling it expand in all directions and deflate in all directions. And take your time making your way back down to one last child's pose or puppy. So if you have a hard time bringing the head and the hips down, just rest in puppy pose. That makes more sense in the theme of our bone exploration here. Okay, so let's inhale back up into table and let's make our way into a hero's pose. And hero's pose can be really tough, but it can also really be easy. So if it's tough for you, take blocks or a blanket and build them up, stack them up, and then what you do is you put those blocks in between your legs and you sit back on them. And you raise your hips so that hero's pose becomes a lot more attainable. And this is a great pose for lengthening your quadriceps. It's a great pose for meditation. It's a great pose for introspection and reflection. So let's spend these last few moments returning to a sense of serenity. We already had it as we were doing our yoga, but sometimes those poses can stoke a little fear and anxiety. So use your breath to tone things down and find your sense of contentment here. Take a few last breaths to feel your rib basket expanding with each inhale and deflating with each exhale. And maybe the expansion is getting bigger and bigger each time, and the deflation is taking a little bit more time and going a little bit more subtly, and you can feel this wave of breath surging through the body, bathing your rib baskets in love, nutrients, care, whatever you need to find your contentment. And as you're ready, if you closed your eyes, perhaps you'd like to glide them back open And we can put our hands to heart center. Namaste. Thank you so very much for being here again this week. Again, I'm Jennifer Eubank. I'm here every Friday from 10 to 10:30 on the Sun and Moon Yoga YouTube channel. So I hope to see you again. Check back our archives. You can see past series. I just finished up the Hips Don't Lie, and not sure what I'll do next week. We may do some more bone work next week. We'll see. And thank you for coming. Yeah, feel free to chime in and say goodbye. You don't need to. You can just make your exit, or maybe you want to do some more yoga. You decide. Thank you so much, everybody. Be safe out there and spread love, cheer, and contentment. Minimize those bones of contention the best you can. And one other thing I'd like to say, I dedicate today's practice to Margie, my friend Margie. She and I had a little bone of contention this week, but like loving, thoughtful, true selves, we worked it out, and now we're better friends for it. So I dedicate this to Margie. I'm wearing your earrings today, love. I love you so much. Thank you. Namaste, everybody. Greg, Man, and Frank, thank you so much. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you. I'm so dying to tell y'all the story about how they found a bunch of dog bones in the basement at our house. Remember that, Joan? They found all those dog bones in the bottom of our house, and they called the police. They thought that we were hiding human beings underneath our basement. So they sent a chain gang to come in, and they were dog bones. Yes, Joan remembers that story. I mean, how can she not? There are many different versions depending on who you speak to. Okay, all. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Oh, Carmen. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. Come back and see me.